One of the most dangerous myths that will destroy your ability to grow your service-based business is by calling it a family, treating employees like their family, trying to build a culture where it resembles a family. Let me tell you, as someone who adopted this mindset for 5 years, this is one of the fastest ways to encourage underperformance and not hold people accountable for what it really is to build a great company, which is the equivalent of a high performance sports team. And that's how you should be trying to incentivize people, because the difference between building a company and family is family, you just have to tolerate no matter what most of the time. And if you've truly gone through shit in your life, like I'm sure most people have, myself included, you will quickly realize that the only true people who are there for you are your family. They're not your employees or your colleagues. And I'm not saying this to discourage you from building relationships with these people. I think you should, but you just need to ground yourself in reality and just take a step back and see things for what they are. Because the reality is, family just don't abandon you at any time. Well, if they're good members of the family, and you tend to have to stick by them no matter what. Whereas if you have employees, you will quickly see if a company comes across with a better offer. Loyalty, family ties just go out the window. People want what's best for their own lives, and rightfully so. So you need to treat your company like this. But there's also multiple reasons that you should not be calling your employees and your company a family, and you should adopt this performance-based mindset. I'm going to go through a few of them today. The main two that stick to mind are: number one, you can get a lot more done with way less employees if you start treating people like mature, competent adults and stop babysitting them, calling them family members. Because when you are calling everyone on your team a member of the family, you're encouraging a drag that brings down the A players and stops them performing to the best of their capabilities, because they're having to compensate for the weaker links in the team. The second one is you're able to pay more money to the better people who are driving way more output than the weak links in the company. That's just a harsh reality. So get yourself into that mindset. It's one of the best ways you can start to grow efficiently with the right people who are aligned to the right outcomes. Anytime that you are encouraging people to participate in this family narrative bullshit, you are discouraging growth, accountability, and you're going to let emotion seep into your judgment. I mean, it's going to be part of your judgment on a day-to-day basis anyway, but this is one of the quickest ways to kill a company and get underperformers out when you feel this emotional tie and responsibility to people. Trust me, when your company is going through hard times, it's going to fall on you, not them. So you need to start treating people like assets to the company. Yes, treat them with respect, but they're there to perform. And if they don't perform, they have to leave. Now, nice little segue onto a podcast I've been listening to over the last few days about how Elon Musk runs his company. Most of us are not Musk. We're not changing the world. We don't have a mission that is revolutionizing self-driving cars, electric vehicles, sending rockets to space. So there is context and nuance that you have to take some of these examples with. And I think a balance needs to be struck from what I'm about to explain on how he manages his companies. But I also think the first principle thinking, the philosophy on how he governs his companies is incredibly effective, and the results speak for themselves. I mean, what he's done in business says a lot about his management style. Now, there is going to be some debate in some of the things I say today. Again, there is balance to this discussion. I think you have to stick by people through hard times. You have to be understanding, you have to be empathetic, but there is a limit to patience, to empathy. And ultimately, again, it comes back to the fact that a business is not a charity. These people are not members of your family, and you have to be looking at the net gain they give to your company over time. And they need to be judging you the same way. If they're not progressing with your company, then that is ultimately a reflection on you. not them. And they've absolutely got the right to leave, just as you have the right to ask them to leave. So it's 50-50. It goes both ways. But on to Musk anyway. Some fascinating insights from his biography that I've just summarized using AI. Really important points. There's five here that I want to go over. Now, just as a core overarching message, Musk believes that being friends with employees is dangerous and counterproductive to the success of the company. His core philosophy is that the mission must always come before personal feelings or camaraderie. Number one, friendship is a distraction. Musk believes that wanting to be friends with everyone on a team leads managers to care too much about individual emotions, which gets in the way of the mission. He thinks that a manager's job is to drive people to accomplish feats that they thought were impossible, not to be liked. Absolutely true. Something that I have seen, experienced through speaking to people, that if you are letting emotions and personal feelings towards someone get in the way of managing them, then you are not holding them accountable to how they should be performing. Now, the flip side of this is that a lot of people will say, well, if you like your manager, you will be incentivized to perform better. I think that is a pretty weak argument. I like to think I'm one of the most likable managers that most people have worked with. In fact, I've been told several times I am incredibly likable by my employees. Doesn't stop the fact that over the last few years, I've had a ton of people who I've got along great with, but have took full advantage of the fact that they've wooed me with all this likability fluff. And in fact, some of the coldest relationships I've had with employees, they've been the best performers. So I think, so if someone's motivation for work is because they like you, you have to question why they're doing what they're doing, because they should not be intrinsically tied to you. Now, not to say you can't lead them, you can't influence them, encourage them to do their best work, but it has to be based on a better reason than actually liking you as an individual. Because if you go off sick or you spend a prolonged period of time off, are they still going to perform? It's a pretty weak way to run a company if their whole performance is intrinsically tied to how much they like you. And again, you can't hold them accountable if you have personal feelings that way because you're too worried about what they might think of you. So I agree with Musk completely on this. Second point, the manager is a judge, not a friend. Musk states that leaders should not be friends with their engineers. Instead, they should act as a judge. He believes that if a manager is popular with their team, it is a bad sign. He also argues that camaraderie make it difficult for people to challenge each other's work, a tendency that needs to be avoided. Again, I think this is tied to the first point. I have seen this play out a lot of times over the years where someone is likable in work, they have everyone on their side, and ultimately they're able to avoid any type of judgment. In fact, I had someone who worked for me very recently, fantastic person, very likable, very charming, very charismatic. But when it came to analyzing this individual's work, it was lacking in substance. But because they were so politically savvy and good at managing the human elements, they were able to avoid accountability for far too long from managers on the team. The third one is avoiding a greater harm. While his approach may seem harsh, Musk argues that failing to demand excellence from everyone can lead to a far greater number of people of being hurt if the entire enterprise is jeopardized. And I'm going to cover the second point here because they're tied together. A players don't want fuzzy thinkers. Musk's demanding style is meant to attract and retain top talent. The transcript notes that A players don't want to be around fuzzy thinkers, and his direct, clear thinking is the opposite of that. This is 100% true. I've worked with a lot of great people, and great people are very hard to find in this game. And fortuitously, they've decided to work for me. And the person that comes to mind in particular is Vian, who started off as a project manager, became operations manager, then became CEO. Now he has shares in the company. Vian is an A player in every single capacity that you can think of. Now, what Vian hates more than anything is people who don't do their job properly. It's Of course, I have a great relationship with him and also the other A players on the team. What gets under these people's skin is not the culture of working with people that they like. What annoys them is when people don't do their job properly and they let the side down. Their standards are excellent and they expect to see that in other people's work. When they don't see that, it drags them down and they don't feel aligned to the mission. So you have to have A players with high standards, and anyone who isn't meeting those standards are going to have a drag effect on the best people on your team, and they need to be weeded out, unfortunately or fortunately. Final point is mission over everything. His commitment to mission is so absolute that he is described as remorseless about pushing people out, including an engineer who has once worked with him for over 18 years. When their time came to an end, he believes that emotions blur judgments. Having a mission that is so strong and great is a separate topic for a different day. Now, again, Musk is sending rockets to space. He has plans to colonize planets. He's revolutionizing vehicles, energy, etc. So these are missions that obviously are changing humanity. Most of us are not participating in things like this, but I think we can learn a lot from adopting this type of belief and unwavering commitment to excellence. In my history, when I have had such a strong mission, which I actually don't have as much anymore today due to various lifestyle related reasons. But when I look back on Magna Monster when it was most successful, it's been because it was so focused on the mission of revolutionizing how email marketing should be done that was what significantly grown the company for over 4 years straight, relentlessly. In fact, I had such a strong, unwavering belief about how the channel should be managed, how marketing should be deployed, how we should interact with clients, grow e-commerce brands. And that resonated with so many people and got us a lot of acclaim and accolades as well. And that was the fastest period of our growth. Anyone who wasn't meeting those standards, as hard as it was to scale, ultimately wasn't able to work with us. And people who did join the company all joined because of that mission. They wanted to be part of it. So bear that in mind. I think having a strong mission, an operating system for what you want your company to be remembered by, is ultimately going to attract the right people from the very first instance, which is what this whole podcast is about, this episode. Now, these types of beliefs, let's say, may come with downsides. Churn and burn, going through a lot of employees who don't adhere to the standards. It's a valid argument, especially in the agency business, service-based business, because of how dependent it is on human labor to scale, or was. Obviously, things are changing a lot now with AI. And I've been pruning through this podcast as well in the biography, thinking about what Musk thinks about employee churn. And he's got some interesting insights on this, some of which I agree with massively, obviously, or I wouldn't be sharing with you. Others, I think, need to be more balanced in the context of what most of us are doing to grow our companies, and also the lifestyle that you want as well. Because this is a guy who works every single waking hour. He doesn't have time for relationships outside of work. Most of us don't want that type of balance. So take this with a pinch of salt. But this is how he runs his companies. The guy's been incredibly successful. So without further ado, his perspective on employee churn and its impact is as follows. He has a preference for fresh blood. He likes fresh blood and is concerned with employees who he believes are phoning in rich, meaning they have enough money in vacation homes to no longer have the hunger to stay all night on the factory floor. He believes that unless he maintains a maniacal sense of urgency, a company could become flabby and slow. Let me tell you, that's true. I've got children now. Before having kids, the energy and the relentless focus I used to have to throw myself entirely into my work, I could outwork anyone. Now I have a lot less energy. And also, there's a lot of things in my life that require more balance, more time away from the computer. Now, That's not to say that I'm advising people to not have children, but you can see why the majority of VC funding and money goes to young people with no responsibilities, fresh blood, as he says. And also, in my experience as well, I have to be honest, I like working with younger people. They're hungry, they want to earn money. Of course, they can be a bit rough around the edges, but you can train up a good attitude. A lot of older people become set in their ways, and this is why they become knocked off their perch by younger people up and coming who are hungry, who have that zest for life, that energy. I love that. I feed off it. And I think that there's a lot of truth in what he says here. So don't be holding on to someone based on experience or time in the game. That can be replaced by a really good attitude and hunger and desire. You just got to have the energy and resources yourself to train those individuals up. But I have seen it a lot where young people have came in, they've quickly overtaken more experienced people that I've hired because they've just got a ferocious appetite for learning. Second one, mission over people. Musk is described as remorseless and mission first. He believes that by trying to be nice to people, a leader is not being nice to the dozens of other people who are doing their job well. This philosophy leads him to prioritize the success of the entire enterprise over the feelings of the individual. We've been over this before. I completely agree. A consequence of hardcore culture, the transcript notes that many of his top executives fled during the 2018 production hell. This is when Tesla had to massively ramp up the production volume to stay in business. He views this turnover as a natural consequence of his hardcore approach and his belief that revolutionizing industries is not for the faint of heart. This is something that needs to be balanced because most of us are not revolutionizing industries. We're trying to achieve an outcome to subsidize a lifestyle based goal. At least I assume that's what the majority of you are trying to do. I don't think most people listening to me, especially, are going to be on the cusp of a technological breakthrough. So having that type of work life balance or approach or expecting that of your employees, I think is probably a step too far and something you need to be cognizant about, that you can cause people to leave and you can end up causing yourself a lot more problem. Most of us are not curing cancer, solving disease, revolutionizing energy. So it needs to be balanced. You do need to understand the fact that you are the founder. You're going to have to be front line and center dealing with most of the stress. And I think expecting that of your employees to the same degree that you have. Yes, have high standards, have excellent standards, but also just understands that again, this mission that we have often doesn't transcend life and death. Let's just be honest. Final point, a learning opportunity from Musk's perspective. This culture attracts people who want to learn at an accelerated pace. One employee noted that he learns more unique lessons from Elon per minute than any other human I've met. And it would be dumb not to spend some of your life with such a person. This implication is that even if employees do not stay long term, they gain invaluable experience that they can use later in their careers. Again, needs to be a bit of balance on this. You will keep the really hardcore people, but look at the mission in general. How important is our mission to humanity? So I think you can incentivize people very, very heavily financially, but there's a limit to even that as well. There has to be some upsides to other things that are important to them. And for most people who are not revolutionizing energy, sending rockets into space, that's going to be their lifestyle outside of work. So expecting them to work every single waking hour just to grow an email marketing agency or Facebook ads or whatever it is you do, it's not realistic. You need to be more grounded in reality. That's it for this week. It's really interesting how to run a company. I'm constantly learning new things every single day. I don't have everything solved by any means, but I do know that a company is not a family and you should not be calling it a family, at least not in a literal sense, and trying to really treat people the same way you do as a family. If anything, treat them like a high performance sports team, demand accountability, demand excellence, and uphold people to those standards whilst giving them enough upsides to aim for financially, as well as supporting their goals outside of work or giving them the time to achieve that. That's it. Peace for this week.